What do pastors, presidents, and performing artists have in common? It's a skill that is also shared with salespeople, teachers, YouTubers. Want to have a guess? Have you guessed it yet? It's the ability to communicate effectively, I must add. Effective communication is a God-level skill. I'll say there's 3 skills that any person will benefit from. Doesn't matter what your profession is. You could be a doctor, you could be a data analyst, or you could be in sales. If you have communication skills, people skills, and the skill of resilience, then you will go further than people in your chosen profession who don't have those skills or don't have them to the same degree that you have them, right? So today we're focusing on communication. When I say communication skills, this is the ability to make people understand, comprehend what you're saying to them in a manner that gets the results that you desire. So if you're a teacher, for example, what is the desired result? You want your students to learn the topic that you are teaching. So you have to break down information that is new to them in a manner that is easily digestible and that they can retain and then execute, right? That's what you want to do as a teacher. You're passing on these skills, you're passing on this information, this knowledge to a new generation, and you want them to be able to execute on those skills, right? And hopefully teach them to the next generation. So that's the intended result of your communication when you're a teacher. If you're a doctor and you need to tell a patient that, they might have, say, cancer, for example, what is the intended result there? You have to let them know the gravity of the situation, right? But you also have to break it down to them or break it to them in a way that won't break them. You understand? So you also have to be sensitive, but you have to be clear, and you need to let them know the road to getting better. So there also needs to be hope, right? So that's a very difficult thing to do. But if you're an effective doctor, you can do it. You will be more effective than someone who might have the same skill in healing people as you, but you might get more patients wanting to come to you because you are much better at transferring that information, right? At communicating. So communication as a skill, it's a necessary skill. And it's a God-level skill for those who do it well, right? If you're a salesperson, I've been doing door-to-door sales, and I can tell you this much. On my first day, I wasn't that great at communicating, not the words, mind you. The words, I knew the sales script, fine, right? But my issue is more with what we call C principles. So C, S-E-E. We're talking smiling, eye contact, enthusiasm. I'm a very direct person, so eye contact was not really the problem. In fact, people find me intimidating because of the intensity of my eye contact. So I had to learn to kind of lower that a little bit. But smiling and enthusiasm are things I'm not that great at. I do have a nice smile. However, I don't always smile when I'm talking because it's, I don't know, it's just not a learned behavior for me. I tend to have a more stoic approach. So learning to smile is something that I had trouble with on the first few days knocking on doors, but something I've become a bit more effective at. Learning to show enthusiasm, because if you're doing sales, you have to be enthusiastic about the product or the campaign that you're on. Otherwise, it's not, it doesn't translate. The people that you're knocking doors of will not believe in the product if you don't show any belief in the product, and you show that via enthusiasm. Now, that was my main problem on my first day. My C principles were off, so you need to learn to smile, be enthusiastic, and maintain eye contact. Hello. Very important for sales. And that is what you may not realize, is that about 70% of communication is body language. Only about 9 to 12% is the spoken words. The rest of it is body language, your tone of voice, how you enunciate your words, the enthusiasm that you show, the tonality, the cadence. That's what makes up about 80% of communication. Just the body language, your tone of voice, your cadence. These things are what most communication is made up of. Like, again, if I'm breaking bad news to you, but I say it like this: hey, your house just burned down. How does that sound? If I'm a firefighter and I say it like that, how are you gonna take it? It's not gonna go well. So what was it that made me get into door-to-door sales in the first place? Well, having a background in finance, I knew I'm okay with numeracy, I'm okay with analysis, I'm pretty good at managing things, like in terms of financials, getting the books in order and the operations, paying things on time, making sure that everything's in stock, inventory management, all that sort of stuff, I'm okay with. I'm also all right with inbound sales. Inbound sales, those are like warm leads. People who already were looking for your service. All you have to do is kind of just be polite, offer good service, and just be good, and just don't mess up the sales. They've already come to you. All you have to do is just be really good, really effective with the service itself, as well as just being, basic manners and politeness, and, just having a pleasant conversation. But they are the ones who've initiated it. So that was always rather simple. With door to door, you're effectively cold calling, which is outbound. And you have to really take control there. You have to be the one who makes someone realize that they need the product, rather than them saying, oh, I need to do this, let me go to the shop and buy it, right? You need to be the one that makes the thing, oh, maybe I do need solar panels or whatever it is, right? So you have to be rather convincing, and you have to transfer that energy of wanting a thing. So I knew I didn't really have that, and I'm not that much of a people person. I'm not that good of a talker when it comes to, a ice-breaking conversation, right? Typically people come to me. I've never been the one to be the opener. to a conversation. I've never been the icebreaker. But knocking on thousands of doors in a month, speaking to 1,000 people, yeah, you kind of brute force your way to learning how to have an icebreaker, how to introduce yourself. So that's one skill that I think I've picked up in the short time that I've been doing this, because again, it's not so much that I've been doing it for a long time. It's just when you have 1,000 conversations in a short period of time, you get better at having these icebreakers than someone who doesn't put in that many conversations in a year. You know what I'm saying? So yes, it was. The other thing is, it has a very quick feedback loop, because okay, this person slammed the door in my face. What did I do wrong there? Let me not do that on the next door that I knock on. And the next door that I knock on is less than 30 seconds away. So you have to learn very, very quickly. And what are the communication skills that I have learned for sure? One of them is definitely tonality, using the tone of my voice. You know, try to use an enthusiastic sound in my voice. Or, you know, when I'm speaking about something serious, lowering my voice, slowing it down, having a serious look on my face, and then bring it back up to smile when I'm being enthusiastic, when I'm trying to let people know like there is a solution. You know, just that effective use of tonality. Also, knowing what words to avoid that put a negative, that have negative connotations and put a negative image in people's minds. Yeah. So it's about tonality, it's about choice of words, it's about body language, using your body to communicate. Like we said, over 70% of communication is with your body. So these things can make you a more effective communicator. But also having a large vocabulary helps, because then you know what word to choose. Knowing your audience, tailoring your communication to your audience also makes sense. Like we have things called low dem, mid dem, high dem. These are like the demographics, right? So low meaning low income demographics. You have to speak to them a certain way that you can't really, or isn't as effective if you're using a middle income demographic or speaking to a middle income demographic. Again, it's different from high income demographic, right? All these people need to be approached in a different way. Also, you have different personality types. You have people who are more direct, so you need to be more direct when you're speaking to them, get to the point quicker. There are people who are bubbly, so they want to chat. So you have to be more chatty with them. Allow them to speak more. Also, you have more conscientious type people who they analyze, they think. So you have to use more factual language with them, because they need to analyze what it is you're saying and digest it. And they do it better if you're speaking in terms of facts. And of course, one of the most effective communication skills is learning to listen. Listening is actually the key, right? You have to listen to what people are saying so that you can effectively speak to them and address them specifically. Effective communication is necessary. And I'll give you a little story, actually, something that happened this week. I was looking for open mics in my area, and I found one. I came across one on Facebook, and I messaged the event organizer, and I told her I'm interested in taking a slot. What she replied with, I know she meant well, but it rubbed me the wrong way because of how she communicated. The message said, "Hi, yeah, that slot is fine. Just let me know what your setup is. Also, this is a family-friendly venue, so we don't allow any cursing. To me, I took offense to that because the implication was that I curse in my music, which I don't. But 3 albums, my latest 3 albums, I didn't really curse on them at all. So I took offense to like the suggestion that I must be cursing, so I must be told that this is a family-friendly venue. Which is interesting because if she had said, hey, what's your setup? By the way, this is a family-friendly venue. Are you able to produce a clean set? Are you able to use a clean set? I would have been like, yeah, sure, I can. No worries. But because she framed it the other way, in a more negative way, I took it negatively. You know what I'm saying? It's one of them things. Because of the tonality in her message, now I'm not really as interested or as enthusiastic to go to that open mic. So on her side, how many other people has she spoken to this way, where they may have been offended, and now her open mic might not have as many attendees, as many performers as it might have had. It also means she might be losing out on some networking opportunities because she's annoyed some people. So your tonality, the words you choose, the way you put your message across, it can be opening or closing doors for you. So you need to learn to communicate effectively. Communicating effectively means, once again, putting your ideas across to another person in the way that you intended. So you need to be able to say things in such a way that they are taken on board, digested, processed, and they produce the feedback that you desire. There's no point communicating an idea and it not being taken on board, or being taken on board the wrong way. I mean, for all my people in relationships, especially the guys, how often have you heard, it's not what you said, it's how you said it? What do you think that is? You may have said something that is factually correct, but the way you put it across, it wasn't effective. So you need to be effective with your communication. That's all I have to say to you guys, man. And I hope you take that on board. I hope that I have communicated my message fairly and more than fairly, effectively today.